On September 12, 2025, astronomers detected something that shattered every expectation they had about how the universe behaves. A significant object blazing in from the darkness of deep space, with a tail stretching across the sky 5 times the width of a full moon, so widespread that even amateur astronomers with backyard telescopes could see it. Within hours, it was confirmed this was no regular comet. It was something far larger, far brighter, and far stranger than anything we have ever recorded. Officially catalogued as C2025R2, now commonly referred to as SWAN. But the timing is what genuinely froze scientists in disbelief, because another object, the already infamous 3I Atlas, was also inbound, racing toward the Sun from the exact opposite side of the sky. Both were set to reach their closest approach to the Sun within the same 10-day window. Each was hidden by solar glare during its most critical moment, and each showed anomalies that defied the laws of nature. The odds of such a cosmic double arrival happening by chance are so vanishingly small that some scientists have stopped calling it coincidence and begun whispering the word mission. If one interstellar object was unusual enough, then the arrival of a second, 100 times larger, targeting the same solar corridor, suggests we may not be witnessing accidents of astronomy at all. We may be watching an operation. As data poured in, what first stood out about SWAN wasn't just its size, but its behavior. Unlike standard comets, which scatter light in predictable patterns, SWAN's reflective properties showed metallic signatures, traces of nickel and cobalt, the same materials humans use to forge durable alloys and protect against corrosion. Some researchers began calling it the fortress, because while most comets break apart under the stress of the Sun, this one appeared shielded, armored, even maintaining a brightness curve far beyond what natural ice and dust could explain. And its tail, already record-breaking in length, did not behave like chaotic vapor, but pulsed with subtle, rhythmic changes, as if controlled micro-thrusts were guiding its movement. Imagine watching a skyscraper-sized tank glide through space, cloaked in a shimmering halo that might not simply be gas, but an electromagnetic shield deflecting the fury of solar winds. That is the image scientists are now grappling with. But even more unsettling than its scale is its timing, because while SWAN looms like a citadel, its smaller counterpart, 3I Atlas, behaves like a drone, agile, erratic, with odd bursts of acceleration and tail color shifts that no natural process can fully explain. Together, they do not look like random visitors. They appear to be pieces of the same puzzle, two components of a system converging on the Sun at the same time, hidden from us during the very days when their true purpose might be revealed. When astronomers plot the arrival vectors of SWAN and Atlas on a star map, something extraordinary emerges. SWAN comes from Aquarius, Atlas from Sagittarius, two origins separated by more than a quarter of the entire celestial sphere. Yet, despite their vastly different approach angles, both enter the inner solar system at nearly the same solar distance, reaching perihelion within just 3 days of each other. Statistically, this level of synchrony is nearly impossible. Random comets scatter their arrivals across decades, sometimes centuries, but never like this. And then comes the blackout. From October 8th to October 18th, the Sun's glare blinds our telescopes, creating a window in which neither SWAN nor Atlas can be directly observed. The result? Their closest approach to the Sun and to each other occurs at the exact moment Earth's instruments are unable to see. To many, this appears less like accident and more like coordination, as if their paths were intentionally engineered to meet under the cover of solar interference. Think about that. Two anomalies arriving together, timing their rendezvous to the one place and moment we cannot watch. In orbital dynamics, astronomers call this a corridor, a narrow window of space and time in which objects align in a way that defies randomness. And this corridor, whether by chance or by design, has forced the scientific community to confront a possibility it has long avoided. What if they are not merely passing through, but converging for a purpose? While orbital mechanics raise questions, the energy data raises alarms. Atlas has already stunned researchers with bursts of acceleration that mimic thruster-like maneuvers, each pulse requiring the output of 10 nuclear power plants to explain. But SWAN makes even that seem trivial, with implied energy levels on the order of 10,000 gigawatts, more than the entire power grid of Earth. No natural comet nucleus can produce such raw output. Its reflective metals, persistent halo, and rhythmic pulses suggest not outgassing, but control, like a machine using plasma bursts to steer itself. The idea of engineered propulsion, once dismissed as science fiction, is now quietly circulating among astronomers who can no longer ignore the numbers. And then there is the timing of the pulses themselves, regular enough to resemble a signal, patterned enough to hint at communication, and so consistent that some are now calling SWAN not a fortress, but a beacon. If Atlas is a drone, maneuvering and adjusting, then SWAN may be the mothership, a massive structure designed to survive millennia in space, arriving not by accident, but by cycle. With an orbital period exceeding 22,000 years, SWAN may have passed this way long before recorded history, perhaps even during the last ice age, leaving traces our ancestors remembered as myths, carvings, or warnings. And now it is back, aligned once again with another anomaly, as if to remind us that we are not the only intelligence shaping the sky. Just as the world's attention reached its peak, silence descended. NASA, ESA, and other agencies quietly restricted data releases, suspending high-resolution imaging and radar tracking during the very days when the two objects would be closest to the Sun. Officially, this was explained as Sun conjunction downtime is a well-known safety measure. But behind the scenes, leaks discovered that orders had been explicit: avoid public statements, deny requests for raw facts, and reroute proposals for opportunity observations. The blackout wasn't simply natural, it turned into enforced. And yet, the silence of institutions best amplified the voices of independent astronomers who rallied across boards and personal networks to preserve their telescopes pointed at the sky. Groups like the Aberro Tracker Collective in Spain and Bill Gates' distributed telescope network started sharing records, desperate to capture even fragments of data that governments refuse to release. This grassroots resistance has fueled the hypothesis that something superb is occurring backstage, something organizations do not want the public to see. Because if SWAN and Atlas are converging for a reason, then the real question isn't just what they are, but why they are here now. And if their meeting was engineered, then humanity has already stumbled into the middle of a mission we were never intended to witness. As telescopes tracked 3I Atlas, something unusual emerged. Its tail wasn't simply sparkling, it was changing in a manner that appeared planned. Over a span of weeks, 3 surprising accelerations were recorded, each one sharp and sudden, spaced almost like clockwork, and each coinciding with a strange color shift within the tail. One moment, the glow might tilt red. The next, it would shift to neutral, then snap back once again, as if an unseen mechanism was adjusting its propulsion. Natural outgassing from comets happens regularly, driven by the sun's heat. But what Atlas displayed was abrupt, rhythmic, and controlled. Energy estimates suggested the power required for each thrust was equal to 10 nuclear plants, working at full capacity. For a piece of ice and dust, that should have been impossible. For a device, it might make sense. Meanwhile, SW's massive structure reflected this behavior on an even larger scale. Its giant tail wasn't chaotic, but pulsed with microbursts that nudged it subtly, like course corrections made with precision. Both objects, one small and agile, the other giant and unstoppable, appeared to be maneuvering in the solar system not as wanderers, but as participants in a plan. And the chilling element was this: their thrusts were not random, they seemed synchronized. Orbital dynamics are the one aspect astronomers trust to reveal truth, but here the truth is unsettling. Swan and Atlas, though traveling from entirely different directions within the galaxy, lined up to occupy the same narrow corridor of space and time. Their perihelion points, their closest brushes with the Sun, ended up only 50 million kilometers apart, a distance smaller than that between Earth and Mars. Their timing was within 3 days, all of this unfolding during the exact Sun conjunction blackout window when Earth-based telescopes were blinded by glare. For comet watchers used to centuries of data, this is unprecedented. Normally, interstellar visitors appear sporadically, sometimes decades apart, their orbits scattered across time and space. But here were two anomalies intersecting the same corridor in synchrony, as though both were guided by a schedule, a clock ticking on a scale beyond human comprehension. It is as though the Sun is not just a gravitational center, but a rendezvous point, a meeting hub for missions we are only beginning to notice. When chance breaks down, design rises as the only explanation left on the table, and now even the most cautious voices in astronomy admit this seems engineered. When scientists compared the energy outputs of the two objects, disbelief turned into dread. Atlas, with its sudden thrusts, radiated bursts equal to 10 gigawatts, enough to power major cities. But SW, with its sustained luminosity, implied an energy output of 10,000 gigawatts, more than the entire Earth generates. That scale of energy cannot be reconciled with natural processes. Comets sublimate ice. Asteroids reflect sunlight. But nothing sustains such stable, massive power without collapsing. Theories began to swirl. Was SW harvesting solar energy, using the Sun itself as a massive recharge station? Was its vast metallic hull designed to capture radiation and convert it into propulsion? Some fringe researchers even argued it wasn't a comet at all, but a fortress-like construct, its enormous glowing tail a byproduct of plasma shielding. The most haunting possibility is that its energy wasn't for travel at all, but for communication. A beacon broadcasting not to Earth, but to somewhere far beyond. Its pulsing emissions carrying information across the void. If this is true, then SW isn't always just traveling, it's reporting, and we aren't the meant target market. As both items closed in on perihelion, the institutions we rely on for reality began to fall silent. NASA, ESA, and ISRO all curtailed updates, restricted statistics, and denied requests for NET's uncooked observations. Information that was, as soon as public, suddenly became labeled. When pressed, officers cited inner evaluate and conjunction downtime. However, at the back of closed doors, astronomers whispered of express orders to stay quiet. FO1A requests again heavily redacted documents, and leaks from observatory body of workers advised researchers were reassigned, groups dissolved, and telescope feeds constrained. This wasn't the regular hush of careful science. It became a blackout of reason. At the identical time, independent astronomers filled the void, rallying networks of outdoor telescopes, repurposed satellites, and encrypted statistics channels to music what governments refused to share. The greater silence from the pinnacle, the louder the whispers grew. Something exquisite became going on, something so paradigm-transferring that silence had come to be a form of control. Because while discoveries threaten no longer simply science, however, energy, the fact is, never denied. It is hidden. And in this situation, that silence may be the maximum terrifying evidence of all. As SSW and Atlas superior toward their closest method, scientists started out revisiting historic facts, no longer due to the fact they were determined, however, because the orbital period of SWN suggested something impressive. Every 22,554 years, this item could go back, which supposed its final look covered up almost flawlessly with the cease of the final ice age. Archaeological websites like GB Cleat in Turkey suddenly won new relevance because, among its historic stone carvings, are depictions of celestial occasions, spirals, and symbols that some researchers trust may want to represent long-length comets blazing throughout prehistoric skies. Imagine humanity's earliest civilizations looking a glowing fortress the size of a small world dominate the heavens, leaving impressions so powerful they have become fable etched into stone for generations. Could it's that SW become here earlier than witnessed via historical eyes, its arrival recorded as warnings, prophecies, or spiritual iconography? If this cycle has been repeating considering earlier than human memory, then perhaps what we are seeing now is not just astronomy. However, the go-back of something our ancestors once feared enough to immortalize. Behind the polished press releases and careful medical statements, there have been quiet operations unfolding within the shadows. Sources whispered of a categorized probe released from a covert orbital platform, a task designed to check the proper nature of Swan. The probe became armed with superior particle scanners constructed to pierce via the blinding tail and seize high-resolution structural records. It in no way made it. Just over 1,000 kilometers from the target, its sign was abruptly cut. For a second, analysts believed it was a gadget fault, but then got here the final photo. A reflection, a fractal echo of the probe itself, as if SWN had scanned it lower back in ideal mimicry. Moments later, the feed collapsed into silence. Engineers reading the data called it an electricity wall, a lattice-like area much like a Faraday cage, designed not only to guard but to repel intrusions. If that is real, then SW isn't just passing through. It is defended, actively monitoring and countering something that gets too near. The implications are chilling. Not only is it extensive, it's miles conscious. Spectroscopic facts from internet brought yet every other layer of thriller. Instead of the same old mix of ice, dust, and silicates predicted from comets, SW spectrum discovered lines of complex organic molecules, polycyclic aromatic hydrocarbons, so delicate and based that some scientists argued they regarded engineered. These are the building blocks of lifestyles, precursors to amino acids, the very seeds from which biology can emerge. Unlike messy, chaotic mixes found in primitive comets, SW's organics had been natural, aligned, almost to best. Some commenced theorizing that SWN might not absolutely be a gadget, but a provider, a seed deliver designed to move and possibly distribute existence across megastar systems. If Atlas became a drone, agile and energetic, and Swan a citadel, massive and shielded, then collectively they might constitute specific tiers of a miles-older project: remark, protection, and possibly colonization. And if that's real, then Earth's role in this story may not be incidental. We can be the following step in a plan that predates us by tens of lots of years. As the blackout window deepened, independent trackers noticed a detail that few dared to voice aloud. The trajectories of Atlas and SWN had been no longer just converging with the aid of coincidence. They seemed to be aligning toward the identical location of area, a hall that delivered them within proximity of every other near the solar. For herbal items, such precision might be absurd. But here, the orbital dance looked intentional, like ships arriving at a harbor for rendezvous. Some theorists argued this will be a refueling occasion, the sun acting as an energy node wherein each gadgets recharge. Others proposed it turned into an audit. As systems take a look at wherein Atlas delivered facts accumulated over its passage, whilst Swan served because the archive or transmitter to something farther away. The most unsettling idea, however, changed into that this wasn't their meeting in any respect, however ours. That humanity, with its units in the end superior sufficient to examine, had emerged as part of the plan. Because in the event that they were passing, not noted for millennia, then why now do they align so truly, so visibly, and at a moment whilst we're capable of watching? Perhaps the actual rendezvous isn't always among them, however, between them and us. As Webb's devices persisted to attention on SW, scientists observed something so surprising that preliminary reports were almost buried. The item wasn't just reflecting daylight, it changed into emitting radiation in a frequency band almost silent in the herbal universe, somewhere between tender X-rays and gamma radiation. Natural comets and asteroids do no longer generate based emissions in this variety, yet SW pulsed with precision, as though sending coded periods. The pulses overloaded smaller ground-based detectors, even inflicting transient sensor blindness in a single prototype telescope array in Australia. Some engineers described the effect as deliberate jamming, the form of technology that could blind opposing sensors. For the first time, whispers of hostility started to emerge. This wasn't only a fortress. It might be strategic, designed to control what ought to or couldn't see it. If Oumuamua becomes silent, enigmatic and evasive, Swan became the other, loud, commanding and disruptive, bending not best its environment, but our devices to its will. Then came the sign. Amateur satellite trackers stated a burst of energy originating from SWN and pointing no longer at Earth, however on the Moon. The wave packet wasn't simple. It became layered, based in amplitude, frequency, polarization, and harmonic tones. Linguists, mathematicians, and cryptographers scrambled to decode what seemed less like language and greater like executable code and training set. When NASA's deep space community triangulated the burst, they showed its vacation spot, a specific region of the lunar surface recognized for its dense mascon, gravitational anomalies below the crust. For many years, those websites had been mysteries, unusually heavy concentrations of mass that no geological concept fully defined. Now, the opportunity became chilling. What if SW wasn't simply staring at? What if it turned into activating something buried under the Moon, something dormant, waiting for the right signal? If it really is actual, then the Moon, lengthy concept to be Earth's silent accomplice, may as an alternative be part of a gadget we in no way understood. During SWN's approach, worldwide monitoring stations began detecting anomalies no longer within the sky, however in the Earth itself. Magnetometers throughout continents registered synchronous pulses every 43 seconds, flawlessly matching SWN's emission cycles. Seismographs in Antarctica, South America, and Asia recorded extremely low-frequency vibrations that couldn't be traced to tectonic pastime. Even extra unsettling, whole populations of migratory animals, birds, whales, insects, shifted their navigation styles in unison as even though responding to an invisible compass that had all at once flipped. Earth itself regarded to be resonating, as though reminded of something it had forgotten, a memory buried deep within its crust. Scientists debated whether those had been coincidences, artifacts of sunstorms, or hidden links to SWN's presence. But for those looking carefully, the message turned into clean. This turned into no longer a cosmic event occurring out there. It had reached us, vibrating through our planet, altering the very systems we concept had been unbiased of the stars. By now, astronomers and theorists alike commenced piecing together a story too scary to say aloud. What if Oumuamua, that first odd traveler in 2017,